If you look at what abortion rights groups have to say, you'd picture the typical criminal abortionist as having been performed by some random greasy old man with a coat hanger in a back alley someplace. But research shows that that wasn't the typical scenario. This is Christina with the Sisyphean Journal, and today is January 30th. Today we have more information about one death than we do about the other. But in both cases, we see medical professionals involved in women's deaths. And here at the Sisyphean Journal, we want to get conversations going about these cases. Now, research by both Planned Parenthood, which was published by Dr. Mary Calderone, who was then medical director of Planned Parenthood, and a researcher named Nancy Howell Lee, published in her excellent book, The Search for an Abortionist, they found that about 90% of pre-legalization abortions were done by physicians. Now, Dr. Calderone didn't look more closely, but Nancy Howell Lee did. And when she spoke to women who were setting up their abortion, she found out that of that roughly 10% of women who were finding non-physician abortionists, about half of them found other people with medical training. It might be a midwife, a nurse, even a dentist or a veterinarian, somebody who had medical training and pretty much knew what they were doing. I mean, the abortion rights lobby is always arguing now that non-physicians should be allowed to perform abortions because they're ever so safe. And even the non-trained, non-professionals often had a doctor who provided training, medicine, instruments, and backup. Today, let's look at our first tragedy. In late January of 1904, Stella Murgatroyd lay ailing in the home of her parents just outside Jacksonville, Illinois. Her father later testified that Stella had left home on the afternoon of January 21st and had come home at about 5 p.m. She seemed okay, but the next day at around noon, she started to develop a fever. Now, at first, the family asked her if they could call in a doctor to attend to her, and she said no. But finally, they brought Dr. J.A. Day in to attend to her. He consulted with two other doctors, Frank Norberg and J.F. Pittner, and they questioned Stella about what had happened. She made a declaration shortly before her death. I, Mrs. Stella Murgatroyd, a single lady, 27 years of age, do hereby and in the presence of witnesses solemnly declare that I was pregnant by John Pate, and on January 21st, 1904, at about 2:30 p.m., Dr. W.C. Manley operated upon me at his office in Jacksonville. I furthermore declare that upon the morning of January 24th, 1904, Dr. J.A. Day was called to attend me, and he afterwards on that same day called and consulted with Dr. L.P. Norbury over my condition. I declare furthermore that Dr. L.P. Norbury and Dr. J.A. Day had no association whatsoever in the operation. So the three doctors who cared for Stella until her death consulted together and signed a death certificate giving her cause of death as septic endocarditis and peritonitis, and a post-mortem examination verified that Stella had died from the result of an abortion. During the inquest, Dr. Day testified that he had concluded that Stella was moribund from the very first time he saw her, and that she told him about the abortion and said that she'd been told that there would be no risk for her. At the inquest, which was held during the first 5 days of February, Dr. Day testified that he had spoken to John Pate about the abortion. Pate said that it had been performed by Dr. William Manley at his office on January 21st, and that he had also paid Dr. Day's $25 fee to care for Stella. Day asked Pate if he had seen Dr. Manley sterilize the instruments by boiling them prior to using them, and Pate said that he hadn't seen that happen. Pate said that the abortion was performed at the office that Dr. Manley shared with a Dr. Corville, while Corville was in an adjacent room. Pate said that Stella had threatened to kill herself if she didn't obtain the abortion. When Dr. Day told Pate that he would have to give a true cause of death on the death certificate, Pate had tried to ask him to falsify it on the grounds that his wife and children would throw him off. And that would be especially the case since Pate was married to Stella's sister, Annie. Now, Dr. Norbury testified that after Stella had given her dying declaration, she had asked him please not to show it to her mother because the baby's father was Annie's husband. Other witnesses at the inquest didn't really have a lot of useful information to provide. Annie said that she didn't know where her husband was. He had withdrawn $200 from their bank account and disappeared on a southbound train. Manley was arrested and a warrant was issued for Pate's arrest as an accessory. Now, I've been unable to determine the outcome of the case, but I don't think either Dr. Manley or John Pate was convicted because as of the 1910 census, each of the men was still living in Jacksonville, Illinois with his wife and children. So it looks like nobody was ever held accountable for Stella's death. Now we're going to jump ahead a little bit and move geographically a little bit to Chicago in 1912. There, the balance seemed at that time to be between doctors and midwives doing the abortions. And a lot of midwives at the time ran small maternity hospitals where they also, if they were midwife abortionists, did abortions. And a young woman whose last name I'm not even going to try to pronounce, she was 21 years old, her first name was Jeanette. She died January 30th of 1912 from an abortion believed to be performed by a midwife named Annie with a Polish last name that I am not even going to try to pronounce. The midwife was indicted by a grand jury on February 15th, but the case never went to trial, and frankly, I've been unable to find much of anything about the case. So if you like, share, subscribe, get me monetized, I should be able to go to Chicago and if nothing else, read the inquest notes and find out what was going on, why young Jeanette ended up dead. Because it's only from these cases that we can learn to prevent deaths in the future.